I don't usually get nervous before dates with women. I used to love that soft buzz in my chest when I'd swipe right and match with someone who seemed fun. But tonight felt heavy. Maybe because from the second she walked into the restaurant, I knew something was off. Lila strutted in like she owned the place, loud enough that people turned to stare. Her blonde curls were perfectly styled, her lips painted blood red, and she carried an attitude like the world owed her something. She didn't say hi. She didn't hug me. She just plopped down across from me and snapped at the waiter to bring her a menu. Wow, I remember thinking, my smile faltering. Okay. I tried to start small talk. You look really nice. I know, she said, not even glancing at me. Her phone was in her hand the entire time. She scrolled, swiped, half-listened. It wasn't confidence. It was entitlement, the kind that made you shrink a little in your chair. The waiter came, tall, dark hair, polite but not overbearing. I caught a faint tiredness in his eyes, the kind that says he's seen a lot of couples like this. He greeted us softly. Good evening, ladies. May I get you something to drink to start? Lila didn't even look up. Yeah, I'll have the most expensive wine on the list, she said. And maybe some of those truffle fries. He nodded politely, but his eyes flickered toward me for confirmation. I wasn't even sure I'd agreed to all that, but I forced a small nod. I felt the first pinch in my chest right then. Throughout the night, Lila unraveled like a bad thread. She mocked the food, sending it back twice because it was too dry. She raised her voice when the bread took too long. She told me, mid-conversation, that my jacket looked cheap but kinda cute. Every insult came with a little smile, like she was testing me. I sat there trying to keep my composure, pushing pasta around my plate, my appetite long gone. You're quiet, she finally said, smirking like she'd caught me. I'm just listening, I answered softly. She rolled her eyes. God, you're one of those boring ones, huh? I should have guessed from your pictures. The worst part? She wasn't even drunk. This was her sober. By the time dessert rolled around, she ordered the most expensive one, because why not, right? Then laughed when she saw my expression. Relax, she said. You asked me out. That means you're paying. That's how this works. I stared at her. My chest tightened. The number on the check hadn't even been placed down yet, but my throat was already dry. I'd always been the one to pay. I'd justified it by saying, it's what I'd want someone to do for me. But sitting there, with this woman treating me like an ATM in lipstick, something inside me cracked. When the bill finally came, she didn't even look. She pulled out her lip gloss instead. The waiter, same calm, kind face, placed it down gently between us. My heart sank. $312. She didn't offer to split. Not even pretend to reach for her wallet. I started, voice weak. What? She said, not looking up. Nothing, I whispered, forcing a smile I didn't feel. The waiter glanced at me, really glanced. It wasn't pity exactly, but it was the kind of understanding only someone who's seen too many bad dates could give. I slid my card into the little leather folder, my hand trembling slightly. He walked off quietly. As Lila checked her reflection on her phone camera, she said, Oh, by the way, I'm probably gonna ghost you after this. You're cute but too soft. I like girls who fight back. I laughed a little. Not because it was funny, because I genuinely couldn't believe how much I'd been putting up with. And then, just as I thought the night couldn't get any worse, the waiter returned with the bill folder. He bent down slightly and whispered so softly I almost thought I imagined it. You don't actually have to pay for everything. I already comped half the dessert. Don't worry. I blinked. My throat tightened again, but not from embarrassment this time. It was something else. When I looked up, our eyes met for a fraction of a second. His were warm. Not flirtatious. Not judgmental. Just kind. Real. It was the first moment that entire night I didn't feel small. And that terrified me more than the bill. The waiter's number burned a hole in my phone screen for 3 days. I kept opening and closing his contact, thumb hovering over send. I didn't even know why I'd saved it. I just blurted out something about paying him back and typed it in before I could talk myself out of it. But the thing is, I remembered his voice. Calm. Grounded. The opposite of the storm that had been that date. When I finally texted him, just a short, awkward, hey, About the other night. I still owe you. He replied in under 5 minutes. Don't worry about it. I didn't do it expecting anything back. My stomach fluttered in a way it wasn't supposed to. He wasn't trying to flirt. There was no smug little smile hiding between the lines. Just warmth. We ended up talking after that. At first about the bill. Then about the weather. Then memes. Then somehow about what our favorite colors were. I found myself grinning into my pillow at midnight over stupid jokes. When he asked me out, he did it like it wasn't a big deal. Hey, if you ever want to try again a date, but not the train wreck kind, I'd like that. I stared at that message for what felt like forever. I'd sworn off guys. I'd spent months telling myself I'd never put myself in a situation where I had to explain why their harmless comments made my skin crawl. Why I flinched when someone got too pushy. Why I'd built walls so high I couldn't see over them anymore. And yet, something about him didn't set off that inner siren. It scared me more than it should have. I said yes anyway. The night of the date, my stomach was in knots. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, picking at my hair, at the jacket I wasn't even sure matched. I looked too stiff, too careful, like a deer trying not to be seen. He waited for me outside the little ramen place on 3rd Street. When I walked up, he smiled, but not the performative kind. It was soft. Real. You look nice, he said, like it was fact, not strategy. I mumbled a thank you, too aware of how I was walking. Inside, the place smelled like warm broth and soy sauce. The chatter was low, the lighting amber and soft, nothing like the loud, pretentious restaurant my last date dragged me to. He didn't talk over me. He didn't lean too close. He didn't try to dominate the space. He just talked. Asked about my favorite shows. Told me about how he once spilled a full tray of drinks on a customer during his first shift. I laughed. Not because I felt like I had to. Because it was actually funny. But then it hit me out of nowhere, this warm, terrifying pull in my chest. My face heated. My throat tightened. I curled in on myself, arms crossing over my chest. He noticed instantly. His voice softened. Hey, you okay? I nodded too fast. Yeah, just. I don't know. He didn't push. He didn't tease. He just gave me space. But my heart wouldn't stop pounding. It wasn't disgust. It wasn't fear. It was something worse, something I'd sworn I wouldn't feel again. He walked me home after, hands shoved in his pockets, keeping a polite distance like he'd memorized the boundary lines of my body. When he said goodnight, there was no expectation in his eyes. Just quiet. And yet, when I lay in bed, my brain screamed at me. Why was I scared of wanting him? I didn't have an answer. I just knew that the next morning, his messages came slower. And shorter. He was pulling away. And it hurt way more than I ever thought it would. At first, I thought I was imagining it, the way his replies came hours later, shorter, like a carefully measured ration of words. Before, he'd reply with stupid little jokes or tell me more when I went on tangents about books or music. Now it was just, haha, that's cool. Yeah, been busy. And maybe he had been busy. But something in me knew better. The night of our date, something in me must have shown too much. Or maybe it didn't show enough. Maybe I made him feel like he'd done something wrong. One evening, after another long silence, I threw my phone on the bed and stared at the ceiling. My chest ached with this hollow, restless kind of panic. I told myself I shouldn't care. That he wasn't even supposed to matter like this. That this was supposed to be nothing. But it wasn't nothing. And the way it hurt proved it. I started noticing how present he used to be. How quick he'd laugh at something dumb I said. How he used to double text if I didn't respond fast enough. How he'd ask if I'd eaten, if I'd made it home safe. And then how all of that slowly evaporated. Like the sun had just decided to stop rising one morning. I'd never felt someone retreat so gently before. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was quiet. Controlled. Like he was protecting himself from me. It killed me. 2 weeks after the date, I walked past the same ramen place. The windows fogged up from the steam inside, the warm amber glow spilling out onto the sidewalk. I could almost see us sitting in there again, me curled up, unsure of what to do with my own heartbeat. I shouldn't have gone in. But I did. He was there. Of course he was there. Not working, though, sitting at the counter, hoodie half-zipped, scrolling through his phone with that little tired frown he got when he was pretending not to be tired. When his eyes flicked up and met mine, it felt like someone sucked the air out of the room. He blinked once, slowly, like he wasn't sure I was real. Hey, I breathed back, because anything more would have cracked my voice. He gave a small nod and turned slightly back to his drink. It wasn't rude. It wasn't cold. But it was distant. That distance hurt. I sat down a few seats away, heart hammering. It was pathetic, honestly. I wasn't even supposed to like guys. I'd sworn I wouldn't get hurt like this again. But I watched him swirl the straw in his cup, and all I could think was, I miss you. And I don't even have the right to say it. The silence between us stretched, thick and heavy. I wanted to break it. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to do everything and nothing at the same time. Finally, I forced myself to speak. Did I do something wrong? He froze. Then slowly turned toward me, brow furrowed. No. Why would you think that? Because you're acting like, I swallowed the lump in my throat. Like you don't want to talk to me anymore. He exhaled through his nose. Not annoyed. Just tired. I'm not trying to make you feel like that. His jaw flexed like he was trying to find the right words. I thought maybe you weren't into it. Into me. The words slammed into me like cold water. I never said that, I whispered. You didn't have to, he said softly. You kind of froze up on the date. I figured I made you uncomfortable. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because he was right. I did freeze. But not because of him. I lowered my gaze, hands twisting in my lap. I wasn't uncomfortable because of you. I was uncomfortable because I didn't know what I was feeling. The air went still between us. And that was the first time I saw him genuinely confused. Like he'd never even considered that possibility. His eyes softened. Not like he pitied me, but like he finally saw something he hadn't noticed before. He didn't speak at first, just leaned back against the counter, fingers tapping idly on his cup. The quiet between us was different now. Not cold. Just fragile. What do you mean? He asked, voice low, careful. I pressed my nails into my palm, searching for the right words. I've never felt that way before, I finally said. Not with guys. His breath caught, I heard it. He blinked slowly, processing. I thought I was broken, I went on, my throat tightening. Or maybe just wired differently. So when I started feeling something I couldn't explain, I panicked. And you, I let out a weak laugh. You were kind. Too kind. It freaked me out even more. His jaw relaxed and a small, almost disbelieving smile ghosted across his lips. So you weren't disgusted or something? The question stabbed at me, not because it was offensive, but because I realized how deeply he'd been holding it in. No, I said quickly, meeting his gaze. God, no. You didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't know what the hell was happening to me. The warmth in his eyes cracked something inside me. He didn't reach for me. He didn't move closer. He just looked at me like I wasn't some puzzle he was trying to solve. Like I was already enough. I kept my distance, he said after a moment, voice quieter, because I thought it'd be easier. For both of us. I didn't want to push you into something that made you uncomfortable. I figured if I gave you space, it'd hurt less. It didn't, I whispered. He laughed softly, not out of humor, but out of that kind of shock that happens when two people realize they've been hurting in silence for the same reason. I shifted in my seat, pulse racing. When you pulled away, it felt like my throat burned. Like someone turned off the light. Something in his expression cracked completely. That carefully built wall he'd put up? It wasn't steel. It was glass. He exhaled slowly. I thought I was doing the right thing. You were being respectful, I said softly. And somehow, that made it worse. Because it just made me fall harder. The last words slipped out before I could stop them. My chest clenched instantly, panic, adrenaline, the urge to take it back. He froze, eyes widening just slightly. It wasn't dramatic. No sharp inhale, no gasp. Just that small shift in his gaze, like something inside him had just steadied. He hesitated. You fell? I buried my face in my hands, groaning. God, I sound like a mess right now. He chuckled, the sound warm and genuine, the same laugh I'd missed. Yeah, he said softly, but the good kind of mess. I peeked at him through my fingers, cheeks burning. I wasn't expecting that, he admitted. Honestly, I thought I was just some guy who made you uncomfortable that night. I was uncomfortable with myself, I said, forcing myself to meet his eyes. Not you. Never you. For a second, neither of us spoke. The ramen shop around us blurred into background noise, the chatter, the clinking of bowls, the rain tapping against the window outside. All I could focus on was him. The quiet steadiness in his eyes. And maybe for the first time in a long time, I wasn't running from what I felt. He leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on the counter. So what now? He asked. Not as pressure. Just curiosity. An open door. I didn't know the answer. I really didn't. But for once, I wasn't afraid of that. I don't know, I admitted. But I don't want you to keep your distance anymore. His smile was slow. Warm. Unbelievably gentle. Then I won't. And somehow, those 3 words felt like a beginning.